Let's face it, we all know Avatar is full of many adults-only noticed themes, one of which is mental health. As we've covered Azula's before, we wanted to touch on Aang and what he had to go through. Like we've said in the past, we are not medical professionals, just fandom-loving TV watchers. In the beginning, we learn that Aang must master all 4 elements and defeat the Fire Lord in order to stop the Fire Nation from taking over the world. He has exactly 1 year until the comet comes that will give the Fire Nation immense power, which would make them unstoppable. This is an enormous burden that Aang must carry. And remember, Aang is just only 12 years old. He's basically still a child. A child that has to end a war. That's ridiculous. War is a horrible thing to experience. At one point of the story, Aang finds the body of Gyatso, his old friend and teacher, along with the bodies of the Fire Nation soldiers who killed him. Aang's reaction to this is completely normal for a 12-year-old child. He's devastated and cannot control himself. And in that process, he almost destroys the entire temple. Only through the comfort of Katara and Sokka he was able to calm down. Moving forward in the story, we all know Appa is Aang's closest friend and his only connection to the past. After Appa was kidnapped, we see that Aang changes. The fun-loving and adventurous child we know suddenly has a darker attitude, gets mad easily, and he's also aggressive. For example, when Momo gets captured by a buzzard wasp, Aang chases them, and after he freed Momo, he could have just let it go. But instead, he knocked it out. This is something Aang normally would have never done. He was not satisfied just by letting the buzzard wasp go, and eager for revenge. So he used his airbending to knock it down, showing his sinister and vengeful side. This clearly shows how much Appa's disappearance messed with his mental health. And on top of all of that, he actually meets the abductors. And by the revelation that Appa was muzzled, Aang goes into an absolute rage and enters the Avatar state. Aang begins to form a sphere around himself and gets more and more enraged. While everybody runs away, Katara is the only one who doesn't. And as Aang begins to rise in the air, she approaches him, grabs his wrist to pull him down and hugs him tightly, while tears are just streaming down both their faces. In my opinion, this is one of the greatest moments of the show. It's so powerful and emotional at the same time. We get to see Aang from a completely different side. Aang really has a lot to deal with for his young age. This also gets clear before the invasion, where he can't sleep because he has chronic nightmares. This shows once again how much pressure he was under. All the pressure and all the stress he has because of it really impairs his mental health. During the first half of Aang's final fight with Ozai, Aang is completely overwhelmed and cornered by Ozai, and eventually earthbends a shield around himself. Ozai taunts him for being weak and insults the air nomads, saying that such a weak race did not deserve to exist in his world. He tells Aang to prepare to die before he attacks. Okay, remember, Aang is just a 12-year-old child, while Ozai is an adult. Aang looks totally afraid inside of his shield. I would be too, if a grown, dangerous madman would tell me that he wants to kill me. How could anyone say something that brutal to a child? As we've seen throughout the show, Aang had to deal with a lot for someone as young as he was. And all throughout, we see him struggle with mental health issues. Luckily, our fun-loving airbender had his friends to comfort and help him through the process, thankfully. Alright, enough deep stuff for today. If anybody has gone or goes through these kinds of feelings, please reach out. Somebody will be there for you. And if you haven't heard it today, we care about you. So long, my friends, and until next time, as always, stay flamin'.